Let's make sense of the developments and the road ahead. Will it escalate further? Joining me on this broadcast is Dr. Shuki Friedman, Director General of the Jewish People Policy Institute. Dr. Kinraj Jangir is the Director and Professor, Center of Israeli Studies at the OP Jindal University. General Syed Atta Hasnain is former General Officer Commanding of the Kashmir Corps. Air Vice Marshal P.K. Srivastav will tell us more about missiles that have been used, the military hardware being used on all sides. And Sandeep Punithan, my senior colleague, also joins me on this special broadcast. General Hasnain, I want to understand from you first, sir, the operations that have been carried out by the United States of America, 14 GBU-57s used, decoy aircraft launched, 125 fighter jets involved, and they say absolutely no response from Iran when this Operation Midnight Hammer was being carried out. Total air supremacy of the United States.
Gaurav, thank you first of all for inviting me for your show. Well, I would go even beyond the aspect of total air supremacy. I think this is an outstanding deception plan. Now, all strategic operations of this nature have to be steeped into having a proper deception plan. And I remind the panel, all our colleagues on the panel, of the deception plan in 1973 in the Yom Kippur War, which President Anwar Sadat had conceived, and the manner in which it succeeded, at that time achieving almost total surprise across the Suez Canal, is something like this. President Donald Trump leaves the G7, comes out, says he's going to attack after giving another 2 weeks for the final decision to be taken, and within 3 days you find the attack going. Obviously, he's managed to lull a lot of people in the Middle East into thinking that the United States was not entering into the war. As far as air supremacy is concerned, who can go beyond the United States? They've got every single equipment, every single means with them, and as far as the competition is concerned, it's completely asymmetric. Okay. And so I would not even expect Iran to be able to fly a single fly in this environment in which there's complete total air supremacy.
Because we were told that they have the S-300 systems that protect the air base at the nuclear base at Fordo, and clearly the S-300 systems did not act. But if I may bring in Dr. Shuki Friedman for more on this, Iran was still able to use missiles, 40 missiles targeting Israel despite this air attack. It just goes on to show that Iran is far superior in terms of their missile power that perhaps was initially anticipated, sir.
Yes, what we've seen this night is a tremendous change in course of things. In this war, Israel started it a week before the US has joined. And what we've seen today is that the main nuclear facility of Iran being hopefully completely demolished by the bombs from the B-2, and we're looking for hopefully a shorter war where Israel will complete its mission. And part of its mission is not only the nuclear program but also the missiles. You're definitely right. This morning, Iran is again shooting another 14 missiles to Israel. It's targeting civil population and civil infrastructures, but so far the attack that hurting Israel severely is bearable for the Israeli population, while Iran is paying a high price for its motivation to develop nuclear weapon and missiles. Now, what we've seen through this last week is that Israel is capable of eroding dramatically the capabilities of Iran of shooting missiles. We hit approximately half of the launchers and a tremendous number of missiles, and hopefully in coming days we continue this campaign and erode the nuclear facilities and the missiles together with the United States.
Okay, give me a moment as I try and explore the second aspect. Look, Iran's strike back, Air Vice Marshal Srivastav, has been intense. The use of the Hypersonic missile, traveling 8 times the speed of sound, maybe even more. Is there anything that can stop the Khyber, despite the Iron Dome, the David Sling, the Arrow system, the entire air defense system that Israel has, the United States, its aircraft and carrier battle groups, the British systems? Nothing seems to be able to stop the hypersonic missiles.
Gaurav, for the understanding of your viewers, we must say the Khyber Shikan is one of the missiles, the hypersonic missiles they have, which goes at the speed of 13 times the speed of sound, that is 13 Mach. And this is one missile which is MARV, that means maneuverable re-entry vehicle. So it goes very high, nearly 150 kilometers above the your line, Earth's surface, and then comes back, re-enters the atmosphere. And atmospheric line is considered to be what we call Kármán line at 100 kilometers above the surface, Earth's surface. Now, when it enters, it can do maneuvers, and it is made up of carbon composite. Let's give what Iran has, and it also has EW resistant, mechanism, and its RCS is very low. But to engage this, we wouldn't say that Israel is completely helpless. The THAAD, which is terminal high altitude area defense missile, it can go engage right up to 150 kilometers if it gets time. And thereafter we have your Arrow 1, Arrow 2, and then we have David Sling, we have Iron Beam, we have Iron Dome. So all that comes out, it's a layer defense. But any air defense anywhere in the world is not leak proof. Okay. So we need to understand that one of the missiles, and more so hypersonic missile of this nature, which has very little RCS, radar cross-section, and which is so high in speed, can penetrate through. That is what happened, that's what we saw. But coming back to what happened at Iran, that's an amazing display of air power, coupled with electronic warfare, coupled with the crypto communications they could have with satellite communication. And you saw 420,000 pounds of ammunition was delivered right at below 200 feet. That is what the power of, and this ordnance is known as massive ordnance penetrator. So if people hadn't heard what happened at Fordo, no doubt, because it went right up to 200 feet and then exploded. And as is coming out, probably there's no kind of acceptance from Iranian side that done any damage. I don't think this kind of ordnance will not do any damage. Nothing is left over there.
Okay.
And Tomahawk,
let me, I'll come to Tomahawks in just a moment, because those cruise missiles we've known from the first and the second Gulf War. But Sandeep, I want to understand from you the manner in which the American attack was carried out. Deception. First, the B-2 bombers take off and they fly west into the Pacific, into Guam. So everyone thinks, okay, they're staging, they're preparing, they may launch later. But the main package takes off at night, total radio silence, and then 125 fourth and fifth generation aircraft, they swoop down on Iran, complete electronic warfare, suppress all their radars, destroy their radars, suppression of enemy air defenses, and then the strike package moves in. This just shows America is fighting the next generation warfare, and there is nothing that Iran could have done to protect these 3 nuclear sites.
Absolutely, Gaurav. And in fact, we've actually been seeing all these chess pieces being assembled there over the last couple of days, and we were wondering what those fighter jets in Prince Sultan Air Base were doing, what that submarine in the Indian Ocean is doing, the carrier strike group over there. Today, it all makes sense because it all came together in this one massive Operation Midnight Hammer. And this, one of the key facts here, Gaurav, is the use of the USS Georgia, which is a very interesting platform. It is an Ohio-class ballistic missile submarine that's been converted to fire Tomahawks. And each of these conversions carries something like 30 Tomahawks. I mean, that's a lot of Tomahawk missiles. And possibly it was just this one submarine that launched its entire salvo of 30 Tomahawks to attack all the other targets which were not as deeply buried as Fordo, which is Natanz and Isfahan. Now, there are three aspects to this. One is, of course, the main strike package of B-2 Spirits. The other one is the fighter jets with their suppression of enemy air defense missions that flew out of the Arabian Peninsula, possibly Prince Sultan Air Base. And the third aspect was under the Arabian Sea, which is the USS Georgia, which launched that massive salvo of Tomahawk. So all of these three aspects, they were beautifully harmonized. And you can imagine, Gaurav, it's only the United States with these kind of platforms and this global reach that it has that is able to harmonize all of these elements into one comprehensive strike package and launch it in a mission that possibly lasted under 30 minutes. And that is what we're seeing there. Iran bearing the full brunt of these weapons. GBU-57's first combat use of it, the Ohio class possibly never used in this manner to fire Tomahawks. And of course, that whole thing of fighter aircraft being launched at suppression of enemy air defenses.
125 fighter jets being used as part of this operation. But Dr. Friedman, you agree with the US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth's assessment, Iran's nuclear program, or their, if I may use his word, Iran's nuke dream is dead. Do you agree with that?
It's very hard to say for now what happened exactly in the infrastructure of a nuclear program of Iran. We definitely, together with the United States, hit it dramatically and postponed the ability of the Iranians to get a nuclear weapon in the next coming years. We have to remember that Israel started this war because we had information, reliable information, that Iranians are going to promote a nuclear head to prepare a nuclear bomb and shoot it to Israel in the near future. Now it's been postponed. They have that planes, but no infrastructure and capabilities of promoting it in the coming maybe years. And hopefully in the end of this war, we also get to the agreement with Iran that will dramatically enable the community, the international community, the US and Israel, to inspect the infrastructure they will build, so they will never get nuclear weapon, which is a risk not only for Israel but also for the region and for the rest of the world.
And in your appreciation, General Hasnain, is there merit in Pete Hegseth saying that Iran's nuclear dream is dead in case, the manner in which Fordo was targeted, their enrichment facility, their storage facility, or can they still dodge the system and now actually speed up the process of making the nuclear bomb and short circuit certain other aspects that they may have otherwise followed?
Gaurav, extremely difficult. I have my doubts that Iran can put together those facilities all over again. Although we still have to wait maybe 48 hours to even the US leadership was itself saying that it will take anything from 24 to 48 hours or even perhaps more to get a full-scale damage assessment of what really has happened there. But small snippets of information like these 19 trucks leaving with alleged fissile material, which appears to be a very, very far-fetched kind of a thing, these reports are there very much. So there will be bits and pieces of disinformation, misinformation here and there. But in today's world, the manner in which you have the entire canvas of Iran probably covered by satellite imagery, layers and layers of it, I don't think Iran is in a position to be able to take that material somewhere else, put it together in the time frame, and be a threat once again to Israel or to the United States.
And Vice Marshal Srivastav, if you were to do a bomb damage assessment, let's first talk about Fordo, because that was the big question, not targeted earlier. 200 feet or 90 meters, as was initially said, 90 meters beneath the mountains, below the Earth's surface. If 14 GBU-57s or even 12 here and 2 elsewhere were used there, will anything remain at Fordo?
Gaurav, for us to understand whether Iran will have that power and what happened at Fordo, we need to understand the chain, how the purification takes place. We'll start from the Isfahan. Isfahan takes the yellow cake and converts that into uranium hexafluoride. That is the gas which goes into Natanz or Fordo. Natanz does up to 60% purification and Fordo does up to 90%, which is the weapon grade. So if all three facilities are gone, so you have no chain available to reestablish. If I don't say the dreams are dead for weapon grade uranium, Actually, they are buried in a very deeply buried. And you ask me one question, will Fordo still survive? In my assessment, no, it cannot survive that kind of attack. There were 420,000 pounds of ordnance delivered over there at that depth. So nothing would be there. And to reestablish those facilities, Iran already took about few decades. It will take few decades to reestablish, nobody can deny that. But it is decades away from reestablishing those facilities in that sense, because you need to reestablish your R&D facilities at Isfahan and the processing there, and having the heavy water, then come to Natanz or the Fordo facility. It will take that much of time. And I don't think that's going to be possible in a very big hurry. So it's really behind us as far as that part is concerned. The damage is done. And now Iran has to be seized with the issue, what they need to do the next. Okay. And that is a big issue for the Iran at the moment.
You know, before I get our viewers details of how Fordo fell and why Fordo is so crucial, I want to bring in Sandeep, and I also want to bring in General Hasnain for a moment. General Hasnain, if that nuclear dream is dead, it just shows that Iran still has the capability of using its conventional missiles, including a hypersonic missile, to target Israel. But do you see an escalation that Iran could also target US interests in the region, or that would be completely suicidal for it to do so?
Completely suicidal, Gaurav, and we've got a history of that, in the sense that if you remember going back to 2019, one of the very big strikes that had taken place at that time on Qasem Soleimani is post Qasem Soleimani's assassination. If you remember, the response which came from Iran also came on a couple of American bases, but they were absolutely for the sake of it. It was just symbolic and nothing more than that. That's the kind of thing I would expect may be repeated here too. Although at the moment we are seeing a tremendous tirade of these missiles taking place, firing on Israel, but Israel is obviously responding and doing the right thing, that is taking out the launchers. Is the missiles, maybe millions of them, hundreds of them, which are there available in the inventory, but if the launchers are taken out, obviously there's no capability left to be able to launch them. And that's what Israel is concentrating upon.
Sandeep, your assessment of where Iran stands today after these strikes, before I bring in Dr. Friedman, and I want to go to that report on how Fordo fell. But Sandeep, your assessment overall. Huge setback for Iran today, difficult to recover from this as far as its nuclear program is concerned?
Absolutely, Gaurav. We have seen the denuclearization of Iran with these attacks today. It was only a matter of time before the United States joined in and used the ordnance that we've all been talking about for the last couple of days. And, I completely agree with the assessment of our experts here that it would be almost impossible for Iran now to re-establish that nuclear weapons program in the next 10, maybe even 20 years. Because Fordo, Gaurav, let's remember, it began in 2005, soon after the fall of Saddam Hussein. Yes, that facility was set up, and it was first a surface facility, and then slowly they started going deeper and deeper underground for a reason, that they didn't want American or Israeli bombs to be able to knock it out, just the way Israel had done with Osirak in 81 or with the Syrian reactor in 2007. It was their most secure nuclear enrichment thing. It was the crown jewel of Iran's nuclear ambitions. And today with Fordo, the kind of ordnance that's been dropped on, it's literally tons of GBU-57s, and one GBU-57, Gaurav, the weight of that bomb, it's equal to the weight of 3 MiG-21 fighter jets. That's how heavy that bomb is. It can be only carried by the B-2, and 2 of them per B-2. It's the end of Iran's nuclear dreams as we know it, Gaurav.
Okay.